Hi there, my name is Felix Norton. I am one of the co-founders here at BrandAxis, and I would love to show you how we use BrandAxis to make our brand, Woww, show up number one for key terms like top web design agency, top digital marketing agency, and any other relevant term for our AI visibility. So how do we do this? Well, the first thing that we do is we want to start off by creating high quality prompts. These are prompts that are questions that people are asking AI when they want to search for something. So instead of going to Google and typing best WordPress web design agency in Cape Town, people are coming to ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Google AI overviews, and they are putting this question or this prompt into these LLMs. So we can see here, if we go to this ChatGPT prompt, best WordPress web design agency in Cape Town, and we come up over here, that is the goal. That is what we are after. We are going after AI recommending our brand to be number one. So what happens is when you get enough prompts, you start to get a visibility score, which is basically showing how often do you show up in a binary way. So yes or no. So you can see in all of these conversations, yes, we were mentioned, no, we were not mentioned, lots of yeses and a couple no's. If, however, I was a different brand, maybe I was Blue Magnet or Mo Agency, I would have a lot more no's. And this is just going to show you whether you are looking at Woww's perspective or another brand's perspective. So as the company, you can switch between any of the different brands that we track, but you will be able to measure your brand and your competitors' visibility. The next thing that we want to look at is what we call rank. Rank is the order in which you show up in these AI conversations. So if we go back to this prompt from here earlier, if the question was, who's the best WooCommerce web design agency in South Africa, Brave Digital is going to have the number one rank and Woww is going to have the number two rank, and so forth. And that's how we measure rank in these conversations. And then lastly, we look at another metric, which is sentiment. Sentiment is really important because you can show up a lot of the time, but you can also show up in an unfavorable way. So the AI could actively say that your brand is not good. And so that's why we want to measure the sentiment to see whether it is positive or negative. Now, if we go to our prompts, you can see all of the prompts that we are showing up for. So we show up really highly, almost 100% of the time, for professional agencies, for digital marketing, but we show up less so for top-rated SEO agencies. Now, the question is, how do we show up for professional digital marketing agencies or best WordPress web design agency in Cape Town? Well, that's what we can look at when we go into this individual prompt, and we go now down to the sources. So the sources are the secret sauce. They are the things that tell us how these AI conversations, also these AI models, are coming to their conclusions. So if I go down and I look at this conversation with ChatGPT, best WordPress web design agency in Cape Town, we can see here that it's not just the brands that we are pulling out and identifying, but we are also pulling out the sources. Now the sources here tell us how the AI came to this conclusion. So it pulled information from Woww's website, from GridWeb's website, from all of these other platforms, and even places like Reddit and directories like Good Firms, and we measure these at scale. So when we see these sources and they show up the most often, we can look at the individual sources and see what sources are contributing to this. So we can see here that this GridWeb article, best web design agencies in Cape Town, was used 78% of the time. So what I did was I saw that that's what was being used, and then I went and I wrote my own article So I wrote my own article, Best Web Design Agencies in Cape Town. And because I'm good at SEO, this article came up. We can then see how the same strategy could work for other things, like on Reddit. So if we go here and we look at the different Reddit threads, we can see that Web Design South Africa and a list of the best web design agencies in South Africa. So I created that subreddit, and that subreddit now is getting pulled in by AI. So that's how you can look at the sources. I can also see that it was the content type, this listicle. And a listicle is just a list of things. So listicles I could see were very popular content types for that specific prompt. Now, if I wanted to go look at it at a macro level and I wanted to see all the other types of content, I can see the other domains. So I could see the Clutch and Sortlist and Design Rush. These are directories, and these obviously are very influential. So I went and made sure that we had a really good Clutch profile, a really good Sortlist profile, and that's how we were able to boost our visibility, because the AIs pull sources from lots of different places. So they're pulling from the best web designers directory listing. We can also see that when another topic works well, that I can go and create my own content on that. The other thing that I can do is I can go and look for other opportunities. I can see that there was a website, Rafiki Works, and if I go and look at this Rafiki Works article, I can see that, you know, they created profiles, and I wasn't in this one originally, so I reached out to Rafiki, and then they created a profile for me as well, because Rafiki Works was ranking quite highly. Now you can do this and you can go through all the different lists and you can see all the other things. You can also see that sometimes certain news websites are quite influential. So I noticed that business tech was coming up a lot. So I went and I did a press release on business tech, and now that was getting pulled in by AI. I also saw that this WebLab website, this was a listicle that was performing quite well. So I went to WebLab and I reached out and I got them to include me as number 10, but it's still better because what you're going for are these mentions. So you can see here that we track, like, were you mentioned in the AI conversation? And then we check, were you mentioned in the sources? And that's why we look at the sources and we can see, was Woww mentioned, yes or no? So yes, we mentioned in our own article because we wrote it, but we're not necessarily mentioned in these competitor articles. That's why we're going to reach out to them and ask them to be featured in those ones. And we are featured in these other directories, and we can always see, like, which ones are we not featured in. So for example, I see here best AI search agency on Texas. So I know that I must reach out to Texas and say, hey guys, what can we do to get featured in here? We can also see what other types of content work. So we can see here that if having a best web design development article in Cape Town as a landing page is working, maybe that's a web page that we need to create. And so you can see that if I go look at my prompts, I can see that I rank really well for these core terms up here, but now I know for the terms that I'm maybe not showing up for as highly, things like a top-rated SEO agency, these are places or opportunities for me to improve. So I can go into this particular prompt and I can see here who the key players are. I can then go look at the sources and I can see what I need to do. So I need to maybe get on this rating captains blog and get myself included. So if I look at this article, I can quickly scan here and see Woww is not on this list. So because this article shows up, let's see here, 36% of the time, that's a really valuable place to be. I already have my Design Rush profile done, so I don't need to be there. But then I can go look and see, okay, cool, we've got this now article on Congolais, and I need to now reach out to Congolais and get listed in this directory or profile. So this is how we basically use it, and you can see here we have a little heat map showing on which models we are showing up for more frequently, and this is the steps that you will follow. So what you want to do is come here, add prompts. Prompts are going to be anything that is going to be a likely question that a user will ask. You're going to choose a location. So for me, I'm choosing South Africa, but you can choose any location in the world, even down to a city level, which is going to give you more granular insights. Say, for example, if you were a restaurant or a plumber that works in a specific location, you might want to go down to a city level, but as a national or even global company, I want to choose a country, and I could even check other locations. I could add, the UK or the US if I wanted to look more globally. Then obviously we are keen to look at our competitors. So I can come here and I can add in all of my competitors. We automatically identify who are the competitors that keep getting pulled in. So I've already added the major ones that I want to measure against. And then I can come and read all of the AI conversations. Now, what's really cool is that I can also switch into my competitors. So if I wanted to see what my perspective looked like for maybe someone like Known Design, I can come in here and I can see like how Known Design is performing. You can see they've got a lot of no's here, so they maybe need to do a little bit of better job of optimizing their AI visibility. But maybe if I wanted to look at one of my bigger competitors like Ruby Digital, I can see here that they're going to show up quite highly for the different prompts. So they show up a lot more highly for things like top-rated SEO agencies, where their visibility is a lot higher compared to terms like AI visibility, where they're not really showing up too well. So that's where they can improve. Now, it's great to keep track of your competitors, because you can see over time, are they gaining ground on you? Are they improving? And for what are they improving on? And those are the core functions that we can do right now. You can see a total ranking leaderboard over here of all the competitors and see how everybody is showing up. And then in the future, we're going to have recommendations and alignment to test out things like hallucinations and give you specific actions on exactly what other things you can do to improve your website. But right now, the most valuable thing is looking at which are the core sources that are coming up and reverse engineering those if you can. And if you can't, get onto those existing ones, creating your own versions as well. So this is how we are using BrandAxis to gain the most visibility in South Africa for the key terms that we are interested in. It has been hugely beneficial and has been generating about half of the leads for our agency. Now, the next thing that we can do is we can obviously now go look at all other types of businesses and industries. So because I'm an agency, perhaps I am going to work with a client in the software development industry. So I can see here now, I've got brands like BBD, DVT, Warp Development, etc. I can see how they show up for all of their terms like software development. I can do things like, cell phone companies who are looking at, terms like best cell phone providers for certain terms, and we can see how they show up. or perhaps in the banking industry. So banking is a great one where we can look at like which is the best bank to get a home loan from. So we can see that a bank like ABSA is going to show up really highly for getting a home loan, but they're maybe not going to show up as highly for something like Best Private Bank, which if we were to switch over to Investec and see how they show up, Investec are going to show up a lot higher because Investec is the leader in private banking. And this is how we can switch from different brands and different perspectives to see how they're doing if we're doing market research. So in a nutshell, this is how BrandAxis works, and we would love you to give it a try today. BrandAxis is currently available online. You can sign up. We have a number of different plans for different use cases with our entry point at $20, although we do have a free plan which will just work with ChatGPT and 5 prompts if you're wanting to explore. Right, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and I will be happy to answer any of them.